Sziasztok mindenkinek! Hello everyone, my name is Christine, and I am the host here at the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, the show where we connect your modern life to your Hungarian heritage. We will build bridges between Hungarians who live in Hungary to those with Hungarian heritage who live in all other parts of the world. Not to mention the bridges that we will build between the generations. This podcast is a place where everyone is welcome, where you don't even need to be Hungarian or speak Hungarian to join in on the fun. We will talk about all the things that we love about Hungary, the Hungarian people, and the Hungarian culture, as well as the cool things Hungarian people are doing around the world. We will discover new things, review things you may already know, and we will have a lot of fun along the way. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or you're looking to dig a little deeper, then you're in the right place. Join me as we grow this community and continue to connect the circles of Hungarians around us. On this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, I will be speaking with Michael Csabai Chubboy. He and his wife Brigitta are the owners of Brigitta's Hungarian restaurant in Kilgore, Texas, y'all. Michael shares all about his and Brigitta's Hungarian heritages. He tells us about all of their family and life experiences, both in the U.S. and in Hungary, and how their family journey finally led them to Kilgore, Texas, where they now make authentic Hungarian food in their restaurant, Brigitta's Hungarian Restaurant. Their Hungarian heritage story is not only exciting, but I know you will especially enjoy Michael's charisma for storytelling, as you will hear when he recounts all the places and experiences that led to his passion for cooking and talking about his Hungarian heritage to his customers. Make sure to stay tuned in until the end because you will find out how you can get some of their delicious Hungarian food shipped to your home within the continental United States. Before we start this episode, I wanted to give Michael and Brigitta a special shout out because they had graciously gifted a box of Hungarian food from their restaurant to the American Hungarian Foundation's annual ball as a prize for the raffle table. Thanks for doing that, and your generous donation prize was a big hit. Now, let's get this episode moving, y'all. Please join me in welcoming Michael Csabai Chubboy to the podcast today, and he is the owner with his wife Brigitta of Brigitta's Hungarian Restaurant in Kilgore, Texas. Thank you so much for being here today on the podcast today, Michael.
It's my pleasure.
I'm excited to talk about all things Hungarian with you and of course about your restaurant. So as you know, it is customary that we talk about Hungarian heritage. So that's what we'll begin with. Now, you are Hungarian and your wife Brigitta is also Hungarian. So let's start with your Hungarian heritage first. Tell us about where your family's from, when they came to the US, and all the things about your heritage.
Well, technically, I am half Hungarian because my mom is Scottish.
Okay. So half Hungarians unite, because I am as well. So that's awesome.
My connection for the family coming to America is that my great-grandfather came first, and my great-grandmother hand-carried my grandfather over.
Oh.
They're from Veszprém megyē. They were in a little village called Podrog. They're coal miners, hard-working, hard-headed coal miners. So they came to America and they settled south of Pittsburgh in a town called Smock or Perryopolis, Uniontown, that area. And they went into the coal mining business. And that's what they did. And that my father, the youngest of the four children from my grandfather, Csabai Lajos, he wasn't allowed to work in the coal mines. He got to go to Carnegie Tech at that time. And then he was came out as an enlisted man and went to visit his sister, Josephine, and met my mom. They went off and my dad went to Virginia Tech, or I'm sorry, VPI at the time.
Okay.
He got an aerospace degree. He became an experimental Army test pilot.
Wow.
So he got into the planes first. And some of the planes he was the X-19. I don't know what that is really. He was part of the UH-1, the Iroquois for Vietnam.
Wow.
He was in the XC-142A, which was a cargo plane, fixed wing, but it was a Vistal product. It would flip the wing and land like a helicopter. They
Wow.
direct competition with the Osprey, the V-22, which won out the contracts.
Wow.
But that background that my dad had took us all over. So I was born as an Army guy, I was born in a naval hospital. And then we lived in Germany for several years in Darmstadt. And we came back and I got to visit with my grandfather and grandmother vaguely, I mean, way back here, I remember them. So somehow in there, it was instilled in me a hunger for my Hungarian heritage.
Yeah. I feel like that's what a lot of people feel about their heritage as well. You want to know more and you had all those experiences. So that's pretty amazing, especially because you married a Hungarian woman, Brigitta, your wife, who's unable to be here today, but that's okay because you're going to fill us in a little bit about her Hungarian heritage and then how you met. So tell us about that.
Yes, and I want you to know I get to tell her story my way. Yeah.
Well, I will let her come back another time if she has any corrections. So don't worry, Brigitte, I'm on your side.
So, what would you like to know? How we
Well,
met?
well, tell us a little bit about her Hungarian heritage. Like, where was she born? When did she come to the US? And then tell us how you met.
Okay, so she was born in Gödöllő,
Okay.
about east of Budapest, and she came to America in, gosh, the late '90s, and we met. I had built up a furniture business, an importer bringing in antiques from Hungary, Romania, and Turkey. And she happened to come on property right after I hadn't even gotten over the jet lag yet. And she came on property as she is sharp tongued like her father. I could hear her accent. And so I was showing off my Hungarianness. I said, Jona Putkivanok Hudvaj. And she said in English, are you trying to say something? She teased me about how I pronounced everything. So that's how we met, was on the property. And over time, we built up a relationship and ended up actually moving from the factory, which was in Florida. We
Right.
moved to Hungary and we moved to Veszprém County. We lived in a little town called Dördice, North Balaton area.
Okay.
Got to understand my heritage. And we have two wonderful children, uh, Greta Brigitta Chaboy and Robert Michael Chaboy. And we petitioned the Hungarian government for the right to name my son Michael. I wanted to start a tradition that way. And so I named him after my father and myself, but Michael is not in the Hungarian Book of Names.
It's a very interesting topic when it comes to naming children in Hungary. We touched upon that in another episode about, getting married in Hungary, and which it came out that you have to register names and apply for names. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. When it was time to sign the birth certificates and name the children, I wanted tradition to be part of this. So I wanted my son to be Robert or Robert after my father and Michael and then carry the family name. So we had to fill out a form and I sent it to the county of Veszprém. And after a month, I was turned down because the statement said that it's not an official name in the Hungarian Book of Names. So I petitioned the national government of Hungary And after 6 months, I got a notification back that I was allowed to name my son Robert Michael Chaboy. And that's how he became a Chaboy. But it is a process.
Yes. And like I said, I touched upon it in another episode, and then you've mentioned it again here today in our episode. I feel like naming children and all of those processes should be a complete episode on this podcast. There's so much to it.
So to go further, my grandfather is a Lajos
Okay.
Chabai. My great grandfather is a Lajos Chabai. But my great grandfather had two children before Lajos. The first one he named Joseph, and that would be after the patriarch of the family. And Joseph died before a year old. So the second he named Lajos, and he died the same way.
Wow.
So the third one, he named him again Lajos. So he wanted to build that name.
Right.
And that's when grandmom Juliana brought Lajos Jr. to America. Lajos Jr. was so part of this tradition. His firstborn wasn't a boy, but he named her Josephine. The second one born was a boy, so he named him Joseph. The third one born was a boy, he named him Lajos. And the fourth, my dad, Robert Shandor Chaboy. And the tradition stopped there because my dad started to travel so much. He's away from the family on all the childbirths that he had with my mom.
Right.
So there's a strong traditional root in there.
Yeah, because I feel like it's the traditional root, which I feel like many heritages also incorporate, but I'm not sure if other countries have rules, and the governments have like that overseeing determination of what is allowed and what's not allowed, which is why I said this is definitely worth investigating a little more because it's a very interesting topic. So that's great that you were able to petition the government and that you were able to officially name your son how you wanted to do that. So you and Brigitta, you moved back to Hungary before you had children, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now did you move back to Hungary because you wanted your children to be born there, or was that just a happenstance that you moved back and then started a family?
It's a mix.
Okay.
In my travels in Hungary, Romania, and Turkey, I was accosted many times and had to speak a language with hand signals.
Okay.
And that's because I looked Hungarian. They would point at me and go, Ungarn or Magyar or something like this. And it was with contempt. I had quite a few instances where I was, wow, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Why, I didn't realize I looked Hungarian. I'm an American going around looking at Americans,
Right.
and I realized that I look Hungarian. Over there, I was approached. Even the Turks would make fun of me about the Hungarians inviting Suleiman into Hungary in 1526, I remember, if I remember right.
Yeah, air quotes around the word inviting, right?
So I studied Hungarian history, so I would in turn respond to them. Well, we also kicked you out in 1687 at virtually the same spot. So there's this tug of war.
It was
But
good that you were armed with the historical information, so that gave you a good stance in that conversation.
and I am not bashful about that.
Sure.
It's important. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, that was part of the reason why I had it built up a desire to understand my Hungarian heritage. And the children came out of opportunity. I think Gertschan was the prime minister at the time. There was a program, an IVF program in Hungary, and I am not potent. I'm not easily able to have children. I'm 1 in a million chance.
Okay.
And I wanted children. And so we took that program up while we were there, but we didn't go there to have the children. We got there and found out about the program, and we both wanted children. So we went that route. We want to honor our Hungarian heritage with naming the children. We lived there about 5 years, and we were exporting goods from Hungary back to the U.S. furniture marketplace. And I could feel the marketplace changing. So I
Right.
moved to Colorado to understand. I did a test market and traveled around the greater Rockies
Right.
and found that there's still a market there. And I started bringing containers into Fort Collins, Colorado. And I got business. And
Yeah.
so we moved family back over.
So that's when you like shifted gears. You said like in the 2008 time period.
That's exactly right. 2008, I was marketing the goods by myself, and 2009, I was able to bring the family over. 2010, we bought a house, Pagosa Springs, Colorado. It
Wow.
was
So you've been all over because now you're in Kilgore, Texas. What prompted you to move from the Colorado area to Texas?
2008 financial collapse didn't affect the housing market for the homes that had already been purchased. So there's a gestation period from the purchase of the home to outfit it.
Right.
So I've only sold high-end designers and advertised in Veranda magazine. The ads were like 18 grand a pop in those days.
Wow.
So the financial collapse started to hit them about 2010, 11. And then all of a sudden, I knew I was in trouble. Most of them who had 20, 30, 40 years experience in home furnishings and interior design, they were closing their doors.
Yeah.
Apologized to me. They said, Mike, I'm sorry, but I can't keep my business. My accountant has advised to sell. I'm selling. I'm hurting.
Yeah. It was definitely a time where many people and companies needed to shift gears.
Yep.
So you just were all also wrapped up in that. So you
We
made it to Texas.
we were able to sell our home. We loaded what we could and we drove out across the United States from Colorado to Virginia, where we have good friends in Virginia, and tried to see opportunities because we haven't worked for somebody. We've always been having our own business. So what could we do?
Right.
And it wasn't fleshing out well enough for us there. So I talked to my brother in Missouri, who was a EMC, an electronic message center or electronic message board, an LED sign.
Right.
He said he could help me get my business started, but I couldn't be in his state. So he's Arkansas, Missouri, Southern Illinois. So I chose, having lived in Florida, I-10 in Texas is not a good road for hurricanes.
Okay.
I-30 is much colder than I-20. We chose I-20. We chose halfway between Dallas and Shreveport. And so I started and I could not sell a sign. I'm a salesman. I couldn't sell a sign. I had no idea. I thought, what's wrong with me? What am I doing poorly? And then come to find out this is oil country. Came in here, it was 2014, 15. The economy stunk and nobody was spending any money. Our children had started school up in Pagosa Springs, and I love those people. They're like family to me. However, the teachers don't make enough money there, so they are a teacher in the day,
Mhm.
and they are stocking shelves at a grocery store, working at a restaurant, whatever, to make the ends meet. And the school suffers. Our kids were not happy at school.
Okay.
When we got to East Texas in the Kilgore area, we're in a travel trailer, so
Okay.
we could mobile, and we plugged them into the school system called Sabine, like the river. So after the first week, we recognized very quickly the kids seem happier, and by the second week, we knew that they were learning and enjoying school. the teachers there, they take care of their students.
Yeah. I mean, as a former teacher, I do know that Texas is a big education state. Lots of publishing companies for teaching materials. So you made the right decision. You came to an area where education is important. So that's great. And the most important thing is you made a decision that benefited your kids because that's really what it's all about.
There is nothing better in this life than to help get your kids out of the nest properly trained and prepared for the world. So they're well equipped and have their head on their shoulders, their eyes are open, ears are open, and they can go life for themselves. That's the key. And so
Absolutely.
I'm a proud daddy. Brigitta and I have two wonderful children. They're both excelling in the UIL competition, which is a scholastic academic competition. And our daughter's been accepted to the University of Texas, Austin. And,
Congratulations, because all that hard work definitely comes from good parenting. So congratulations.
and so she's going to follow a little bit in my dad's footsteps. She's into astronomy. She's been accepted for astronomy.
Wow.
Engineering part of me wants her to add some kind of engineering so she can be a candidate for NASA programs, satellite, and all these things that there's
Mhm.
a future for.
Yeah, there's a big market in that area of the country for those people that don't know that. Lots of companies and jobs, which is great.
Yeah, I did. So we're excited. Our son's right behind her.
Great.
He graduates the next year, and more coming for him. And the reason we opened the restaurant was because I couldn't sell the signs.
Right. So like that really was the determining factor. And like you said earlier, you've never really worked for other people. And so you and your wife, Brigitta, put your heads together and you said, let's open a restaurant. So let's
We
talk about that.
had two choices. My brother was counseling me. He's one of the top salesmen for Watchfire LED signs manufactured in the United States. He was at that time. So it was either pick up and move to a new location and get to a better, more fertile territory to plant seeds, or we stay here. And we looked at each other and we said, really, we told each other we could do a lot of things wrong, but if we get our children a good education and all, we win. So I had furniture showrooms across the U.S. I was in High Point, Atlanta,
Wow.
Dallas, and San Francisco, had permanent showrooms, and I would cook Hungarian goulash at the showrooms. I put them in crock pots, and I wanted just kept adding. And at the trade shows, people, they're focused, they're professional, they conquer showrooms. They're walking down like sharks, looking at the windows, don't want to be spoken to. They know where they're going. They see some of interest. They leave enough in their budget that they'll speculate on something that catches their eye. Well, they get caught up in the cycle, working all day, not eating, and at night going out eating a late dinner with alcohol. They
Mhm.
get up in the morning, they start having coffee, and they starve during the day. Well, here's my Hungarian goulash fragrance going down the hallway. They come in, I just give them a little cup. It blew them away. They said, "What is this?" I would tell them. And they're in the midst of Hungarian katona lada, cherepek, lada, ladash pod, favilla, lamps made out of favilla, cherep lamps, and it blew them away. And that's how I was familiar with and comfortable with cooking. So
That's
that gave
great.
the impetus here to let's try a restaurant.
Yeah,
And
that's amazing. I love that you were doing that even during your previous career and you were making goulash. And, when you cook Hungarian food, as you know, it's your profession, it's like the Hungarian perfume. You can smell it, and people are so attracted to it. So That's pretty great that you were able to see that light bulb moment for yourself and now weave it into your current career, which is fantastic. So, Brigitta's Hungarian restaurant. Tell us about that.
We had to choose a name for the restaurant. We had to choose a menu: pizza, barbecue, or Tex Mex. And we looked at each other and said, gosh, we're going to be just like anybody else. And why would people come to us? And I said, we could do the Hungarian meals, but if we're going to do Hungarian meals, we might as well make the restaurant a Hungarian restaurant. And she agreed. And I thought, Mike's Hungarian restaurant just doesn't ring. And Brigitta's Hungarian restaurant, I think, is more inviting. There's a Germanic feel because Brigitta's Sound of Music. I'm Brigitta.
Sure.
So we did it that way. And Christine, you cannot imagine how many Hungarians are in our community. When I say every week Hungarians come to the restaurant we haven't met before from East Texas,
Right.
I mean, every week since we opened in June of 2017, that's nearly 7 years. 52 weeks times 7 is 350 some weeks of Hungarians. We had a Horvat in Saturday night from Shreveport.
Wow.
The week before, we had one of the people who had bought our frozen food, shipped it to her mother in Georgia, came in with her husband. She'd never been here. She lives in Tyler next to us.
Wow. And
And
and she probably never knew, but now she does.
no, there's a procrastination factor and an impulse factor. If they're not driving by our restaurant enough,
Sure.
they're curious enough. That's where we get most of our clients. And then Hungarians who are in hopes of understanding a little bit about their heritage.
Right.
So this Horvat who came in had her story. The lady who sent her gift box of frozen food to her mom has hers. They all have their story, and they all want to know about their name, where they're from, the language, the heritage, and food. Those are the five that is always, they come to the restaurant always. And we have like 4 dozen books of Hungary of all various kinds.
Yeah,
And
that was one of my next questions. Now, you said you've made your restaurant not just a restaurant. There's so many things on the walls and opportunities for people to look through various Hungarian things. So tell us a little bit about the things that you have in your restaurant that people can look at and appreciate the Hungarian heritage.
may I give you a little tour?
Sure, absolutely.
So we have our books, old maps, antiques.
Wow.
We have currency. And then I collected ancient coins. So these are from one of our family friends, the Arampan family. And this is his calendar, a Turkish calendar.
Wow.
And then we have almost everybody comes here to the map from 1914, and they're looking to understand where they are and where is it in relation to Hungary today. These are the things we made for the Museum of Fine Arts.
Right.
So we made this. This is a Turkish jar, and they had a catalog. This is from their catalog. We had a Turkish wood piniat, is where the dough would rise, a rising board.
Okay.
And this is from Ketchkamet. And this is the flowers we did. This all went to the Museum of Fine Arts. And there's more books.
So really like coming to your restaurant, in addition to the delicious food that you're making homemade every week, people have a sense like as if they're coming to a home because you have all of these items for them to see, like books, and it has that warm feeling. And so they're making this connection to the food because food is such a huge connection for people that brings them back to maybe their childhood, when grandma used to make things, and maybe they don't have that opportunity anymore to eat those foods because, people have passed, or, you've moved on, or you've moved to places where you're not near other Hungarians. So you're giving them that sense of connection with not only your food, but with also just the environment of your restaurant itself. So, and from what you've said, people are coming and continue to come from all over because a Hungarian restaurant in Texas isn't one of the typical five foods that people eat. So once they realize that you're there, I'm sure that you are bustling every week with people coming through the door.
We are. We have two challenges in the restaurant:
Okay.
finding qualified help to make our meals.
Okay.
And so what we found was when I make chicken paprikash, I cube about 1 to 2 centimeters cubed of the chicken thighs. I won't use anything but thighs because it stays tender.
Right.
But if I've hired people here to come in and work, but this is a Tex-Mex area, and after I've coached them and explained what I wanted and watched them do it, when I walk away, they start shredding the chicken. And I do not want my chicken as a Hungarian dish shredded.
That's fair. That's fair because that's not traditionally how the chicken is presented in Hungarian dishes. So
I'm really I'm a stickler for the details. We are now only open Friday night and Saturday.
okay.
And I specialize in schnitzel. I always have stuffed cabbage, chicken paprikash, beef paprikash, a pork steak. I'll make a cherry cream cheese strudel or a cherry cobbler. I make a tiramisu. I do raccotte crumpli, the stuffed cabbage, of course. I have a cabbage lasagna. There's a program called, and I won't pronounce it right, and I'm apologizing first. It's about Hungarians around the world. Hungaria Mokol Kal Vlog Koru. Dr. Daniel Kurutz is the director. It's Channel 2 in Budapest. They came to the restaurant to do an interview of us.
Wow.
Had the cabbage lasagna and couldn't stand it. It was so good.
Wow. I'm excited to taste this. I hope that I can one day. Now, what's unique about your restaurant? And I know it doesn't happen all year round because of, it gets pretty hot in Texas and but you deliver to the 48 states. Is that correct? The 48 continental states.
Practically speaking, I don't ship air freight. The day will come because we have open orders in Australia, England, and Canada for our foods.
Wow.
Ready. We just finished our website. But before we get there, can I introduce you to my soccer background?
Absolutely. Tell me all about that.
I went to San Jose State University, California. My degree was marketing communications, public relations, and I had to do an internship. Well, the internship ended up being at the San Jose Earthquakes NASL soccer team. And this is a picture of me. I met him quite a few times. Can you see Pele there?
I sure can.
I was front office, so I got to meet Pele, Eusebio, Gordon Banks, you name them. The owner of the team was Milan Mandrić, a Croatian or Serbian. This is a picture I took. I was a photographer. I made a name for myself in soccer, but I met Hungarians. So I think he's in San Diego. There's a gentleman named Julie V, and he did really well with the Earthquake. And then Tibor Moses from Nyíregyháza.
Wow.
So it planted a little seed in me, and I ended up doing international games, met Detmar Kramer, and Bayern Munich team was in the locker room with Beckenbauer, Sepp Maier, Gerd Müller, all these guys. And that was my soccer background.
That's pretty amazing that you had that experience. And I think what's interesting about your story and your connection to your Hungarian heritage is that it just kept scaffolding with each experience that you had, obviously with growing up in your family, but your college experience and working with the soccer program and meeting these people to then obviously your import business and meeting Brigitta and raising your kids in Hungary and now at the restaurant. It's really like you've just been continually adding to your Hungarian heritage experience, which is fascinating.
It's really fascinating. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I enjoy our clients who come in. They are very gracious and excited to hear anything Hungarian. And we get Hungarians who are coming to visit America. If they're coming to Dallas, they're coming to this restaurant.
Oh, that's
And they
great. So how far from Dallas are you? Just for my own personal interest, just in case.
2 hours east on I-20.
Oh, that's easy. That's easy. That's great.
We get people from Dallas every week.
Wow. Well, it's worth it. I feel like if you are interested in your Hungarian heritage and you're missing eating Hungarian food, it's great. I'm so excited that you guys have this experience because it really is not just about the food. Like, of course, it's about the food, but it's also really about your experience of making these connections every week because each week you're clearly providing that experience of that food connection and people remembering back to their special times with their family when they ate these foods. But it's also about the stories they're telling you and about the things that they share with you about their experience and their Hungarian heritage. And it is really rewarding. And I know we talked about that before we started recording the episode. It's extremely rewarding, and you're meeting new friends and people each week, which is pretty fantastic. It's fulfilling.
And it's a funny thing. You serve a great need because the people are coming in. They're becoming the matriarchs and patriarchs of their family. Because when I took it for granted, my grandparents were there, and then my parents both have passed, and I'm the oldest of 5 siblings, and we are
Yes.
the ones who are carrying on the stories that we experience. And I
Yes.
get that from everybody who comes to the restaurant. They are planting crops, they are growing and have a great yearning to understand their heritage because they're being asked, what does their family name mean?
Yes.
Asking certain words that they hear, and they're
Mhm.
trying to draw out the words that they had heard
Yeah.
and understand how to make the food and what was used in the cultures. It's a big deal. We are a special people. We are an island in Europe, and it's
Yes.
our language, our culture, our foods, all of these things. We name our kids differently, and I honor the Hungarian Book of Names.
Yeah, absolutely. So many great things to add on to what you've just said. I mean, so true. I mean, food is like the great connector, and we are the next generation to pass along information about our heritage, which, thank you for saying the things, that we are, the next experience. So, your restaurant, my podcast, we need to keep connecting people. It's not just about our grandparents or parents that came over. The baton is being passed to us. So whatever connection we have, we need to be able to strengthen that for our future generations. We touched upon it a little bit before, and you're mentioning about sending food. I know you're on the verge of expanding your shipping, but tell us a little bit about how you're shipping Hungarian foods to the continental US started and how you go about that process.
All right, so it comes from us having been open 6 days a week. And anyone who's in the restaurant business is going to tell you they cannot figure out when people are going to come and why. So we go through this dead spell. Nobody's here. Oh, for,
Right.
for hours, maybe a whole lunch. That's painful. So in that time of thinking, the food I cook and I guard it with my life, at the moment it's cooked and the burner's off, it is at its best level. Now, I can gently get it hot again later. So what I had for lunch gets warmed up for dinner. But it's never as good as it was when I finished the pot.
Right.
So I started studying frozen food, and partly for the people from Dallas coming so they could take it home and have it later. But then it occurred to me, what if I could ship it? So I did a study on that, and we took a box and we loaded it with our food. With we won't use dry ice because I've had children. I've coached kids in soccer. They are curious, and somebody's going to get hurt. So I
Right.
won't do dry ice. I do frozen gel packs. Everything's minus 20. So we loaded a box in a Texas summer, and it's hot in Texas.
It sure
Here,
is.
hell is a local call here. So anyway, so we loaded the box, closed it up, put it in our car, and left it in the car for 3 days in the Texas hot summer.
Wow.
After 3 days, we brought it inside, opened it up. The gel packs had gone mushy, but they still had firmness to them. The food was the same way. And
Wow.
so, first test, it would hold for 3 days.
Right.
Second was we would freeze the food, thaw it, reheat it, and serve it in the restaurant for people we knew. And we would ask the people we know, how was the food? It's great as always. Anything different? Could you notice anything? What are you looking for? What are you asking? They want to know, why am I asking that question from them at this time? And then I told them it was frozen, and we
Right.
don't use additives, no preservatives. It's just the meal, and it retains it. Even the cabbage lasagna, the cabbage does become limper, but the taste is so amazing, amazing.
I'm
Everybody,
hungry thinking about it right now.
non-cabbage lovers who come to the
Oh,
restaurant, the lasagna alone, they're out there. I've had several people order the frozen food and send it to their parents who are still living. And we had the one, Alice from Tyler, sent it to Georgia. I have one in New York City. Elizabeth sent it for her mom. I had one in Spokane, Washington, sent it to her father in McLean, Virginia. And they sent me pictures of how their parents lit up. They're eating authentic food, and the taste is what they remember.
absolutely. That's the highest praise that you can get is a Hungarian praising your Hungarian cooking. Like that's the highest praise. So congratulations on that. So you did all the quality control and all the testing to make this next step for yourselves happen. So how many orders do you mail out per week?
We're small potatoes. If we send out 4 or 5 in a week, we're happy.
Oh, okay. So that's great.
Now we expect it to grow,
Of
but we
course.
we only started in January.
Oh, so
And
January of this year. So this
right,
just started. Wow. Well,
four
I
weeks.
expect that once the listeners hear about this opportunity that they can order Hungarian food to be shipped to their home, I feel like you're going to have to order more boxes because you're going to have a lot more shipments.
Well, we've gotten testimonials in from the people who've gotten the food. They love it.
What's
Everybody.
not to love? I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm so excited to taste the cabbage lasagna. That's definitely on my list. Tell us how people can find you out on social media. How can they find you? How can they find the restaurant? Give us all that information.
So my Facebook page is /the Hungarian restaurant.
Okay.
So that's the Facebook page, and I'm devoted to my craft. Good food, cooked right, technique, videos on how to do it, what the ingredients, all of that at the Hungarian Cuisine Facebook. But I just opened up yesterday YouTube, Instagram, and I am LinkedIn because my website has the buttons at the bottom so people can go in there. So when you see only 1 or 2 videos and stuff like that, I'm just beginning.
You have to start somewhere. And for those of you listening, don't worry. I will leave all of that information for all of the social media and the website in the show notes for this episode. So it'll be great. People are going to be able to find you online, on social media, no problem. Now, you said you're about 2 hours outside of Dallas, so that's not difficult to find if they're looking for you. You're in Kilgore, Texas. Do you take reservations or is it just walk in?
Here's what I recommend. Somebody who's going to drive any type of distance, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. If you're driving that far, make a reservation. And we post our menu on Facebook Hungarian Restaurant. And if your heart wants a schnitzel, I'll reserve the schnitzel.
Oh, okay. So you could call and make a reservation, but
And
also a meal.
because we run out of food,
I bet.
because I don't freeze what I cooked for that night or the next day. Don't want to. I want the absolute best that I can do for my clients who order frozen. So it's a fresh pot. I don't cook up for the biggest army in the world. I cook up enough that I think this many people are coming. It's a diversified menu.
Right.
We just go through it as we go through it.
Which is probably why people's experience when they come to the restaurant is even heightened because of that, because you're really making everything fresh. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast and sharing all about your Hungarian heritage and about the restaurant. I feel like we have so much more to talk about, so we'll have to arrange a little Kichi pod for the future. But thanks so much, Michael. Tell Brigitta we appreciate that she gave you a little time off from your restaurant duties to be here on the podcast. Good luck with everything. We'll leave all of your information in the show notes. Thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. A pleasure to get to know more about you as well.
Oh, thanks so much for saying that. And I look forward to more collaboration in the future. Thanks, Michael.
This lot.
Peace lot.
Thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. I hope that this episode has left you hungry for some Hungarian food. And like I discussed with Michael in the episode, you can order some delicious Hungarian food delivered right to your door from Brigitta's Hungarian restaurant. Or maybe send it to a friend or a loved one. Don't forget to check the show notes for this episode and find out how you can connect with Michael and Brigitta and maybe even reserve a table at their restaurant if you're near Kilgore, Texas. If you have feedback or questions about today's episode or you would like to connect with me at the podcast, you will also find my email, social media information, and podcast website in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode and you're interested in learning more about this Hungarian heritage community that we are building, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with special license from Envato Market. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts so we can continue to connect our modern lives with our Hungarian heritage and grow this Hungarian heritage community. Until next time, goodbye everyone. Sziasztok mindenkinek!